In this video, I want to explore one of my favorite interview questions. If you want to know more about Python, in particular in the context of data science, have a look at my playlist. Now, what's the problem? Write a function called sum of even numbers. The function should accept a list of integers. It returns the sum of all even numbers in the list. Finally, it prints this number. Now, printing the number could be done inside the function, could be done outside the function after calling it. So first I will use a for loop and an if statement to accomplish the task. I start by defining the function, so I use the name given, so sum of even numbers. I put here the argument, I call this the num list, which I say should be a list. Of course, this doesn't really test anything in Python. It's just for people to notice it should be a list. So using indentation, obviously, I specify now sum underscore list and I start with 0. So that's basically my counter, and every time I have an even number in my list, I increase the sum underscore list. Now I write down the for loop and I go through all the numbers in my list and check whether they are even. So how to check whether a number is even? The best way of doing this quickly is to use a mod2 operator. If it returns 0, it means that the number can be divided by 2, which means it is an even number. Okay, so now I specified here my for loop, so for number in num underscore list. So for any number in this list, I go through the list and check each and every number. And then I use an if statement, if number mod2, so that's for mod2 %2, is equal to 0, well, then we know it's an even number, so you increment the sum underscore list variable, and of course then we finally return it. You could do a print statement now inside the function. You can also call the function first and then do a print statement. I will show you the latter way of doing things. So I specified the num underscore list, which is simply a list that contains integers. I don't do any further checking whether it's the correct input or not. That could be certainly done. Then I call the function, which I do here, and I then assign the sum list to the sum list variable. Then finally I do a formatted print, so you see the f in front of my quotation mark. So this allows me to refer to sum underscore list, and it will just print the number obtained from the calculation. Now I just run this in my command prompt because I'm using Sublime Text, so I execute my Python script in the command prompt. It's quite, it's nice. Yeah, it's a good way to do it. So here's where I kept my main.py file. I just type in cmd and move straight into that folder. So I type in Python and then main.py. Sum of even numbers is 20. Now, what's a quicker way of doing it? Well, you can actually combine this for loop and the if statement all into one line of code using list comprehension. I have done another video on lists, which goes further into the details if you want to know more. So here I use the list comprehension. I call this the sum of even numbers 2's, and then you see everything is in one line. Yeah, so the sum is simply here my sum function, which I apply to a list. And the list refers to a list of even numbers. It refers to number for a number in num list. So this part here basically gives me all the numbers in my original list if they fulfill the condition which I specify here. Now initially these constructs, the list comprehensions, are maybe a little bit confusing. Over time you get used to it. Many people don't like them too much because it might make the code less easy to read. Pretty good, so that's nice. So that's all I wanted to show, an easy one to solve. So if you ever come across this, if you're interviewed by crazy people like me, that might be one of the questions. Easy in my view, but it shows a basic understanding of Python. Well, if you can't do this, honestly, do I trust you can do a fancy machine learning algorithm? Not really. Good, I see you in the next one.